Join me in this episode of the vlog where I revisit a secret location and capture one of my favourite images of the year.
Morning everyone and welcome back to the vlog. I'm back at a location that I discovered last year back in autumn time, and I had originally come to photograph the beautiful horse chestnuts that are just behind me there, capturing those autumn colours, and I wanted to come back and see what it would be like late summer, see how the foliage and the greenery around has changed. And I'm heading for some hidden waterfalls that I also discovered while I was up here, so let's go see if we can find them. Well, it really is a different scene today. The waterfall's hidden behind a real lush green canopy of summer colour, and it's almost tricky to even see that it's actually there. So I'm looking forward to going down into the falls and just finding out what images we've got. So there's a couple of things that I'm really looking for when I'm out photographing waterfalls. One of those is I really want an overcast day to knock back some of that bright light. And to our eye, when it is really bright, things do look a lot better with that strong contrast. But when you're photographing waterfalls, the dynamic range when you've got bright light on the water is just too much for the camera to pick up. So I'm looking for a little bit of cloud cover. And the other thing is a polarizing filter, which really helps knock back the reflections of the water and of the foliage that's coming up over the top there. And the nice thing about photographing these types of falls is that scale doesn't matter. I don't need to go and find myself the biggest waterfall, because without too much detail in there and without a sense of scale, I've got nobody in my picture. It's difficult to tell just how large this area that I'm photographing is. So I'll show you what I'm looking at on the back of the camera. You can see that I've made these rocks my foreground interest that are just at the front here. There's some nice coloured rocks that have just caught the water and the light. There's a sort of some nice brown coloured ones that give a little bit of interest in the front there. And then we've got these small cascading falls that come down, which are broken up into two. Now, I know that the sort of level the water's coming down, I really want to aim for around about 1/6 of a second exposure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my shutter speed to 1/6 of a second, and then I'm going to adjust my ISO until I get the correct exposure. And you can actually see with the polarizer filter just how much of that light is being knocked back. So what I'll do is I'll take a few shots. Now there's quite a bit of light that's coming down from the background there, so I may find that I need to bracket this anyway. It's possible that I'll blow out in some of the highlights that are coming down the back here. You can see where the light comes through. And I want to retain all of that detail in the water, which with a shutter speed of around about 1/6 of a second, it will do. Anything longer than that, and we're going to end up with a milky mess of water coming down with very little detail. So I'll take a couple of shots, and well, here's the first image. Well, I've come across my next scene, and the main waterfall up through here is looking absolutely incredible. I'm a little bit precarious here. The ground's pretty slippy, and I've given Corin strict instructions that if I do shoot off down the waterfall, she has to capture it in that first shot, because I blimmin' ain't doing that again. So anyway, as you can see, I've got this beautiful log behind me, which has got some lovely colour and texture in it, which has obviously come down and just caught by the rock here. And then we've got the beautiful falls behind. And there's been a few branches since I was down here last that have fallen down over the top there, which I think add a little bit of extra interest. And then we've got the light in the back coming through the trees. Now, I'm surrounded by all of this beautiful green foliage, but the wind's capturing all of the time. And the sort of shutter speed that I need is not going to capture the detail in this. So what I'm going to do is I've set the camera up. If you watch my last video with all the gear that I use, I've got this remote shutter release, and what I'm going to do is gently pull these branches back out of the way and trigger the camera with my shutter release so that I don't get any of this foliage moving around in front of my beautiful image. So I'm going to take a couple of shots, and yeah, we'll see what we've got. And well, here's the first image. So I've just come up a little way up further up the falls and I've come across another epic drop. And this really is quite incredible. As I said last time, I came here in autumn last year and it was very different. There definitely wasn't anywhere near as much water coming off. But anyway, first thing I'm doing is focusing on those boulders down the bottom. They're beautiful, they're really capturing the light and they're a lovely brown color. And what I hope to do is, with a fairly slow shutter speed, again around about half a second, capture those rocks with some beautiful water cascading down behind. I don't really want any more than that in my image. So again, setting the camera to half a second and adjusting the ISO so that I can keep that shutter speed. And I'll show you what I'm looking at on the back of the camera. Fairly straightforward. I'm on my 70 to 200mm lens. I'm around about 100mm in. And you can see all I've done is really filled my foreground interest with those beautiful rocks. And then we've got this cascading water coming down behind. What's quite nice is there's a little bit of moss on those dark rocks behind there, which means it just gives it a little bit of a color and a little bit of interest. But there's enough light coming off of the top of there to almost make that water look like beams of light coming down through on a slow enough exposure. So as I said, I'm setting my exposure to half a second and I'm adjusting my ISO so that I can keep that shutter speed. And yeah, well, anyway, here's the image. So I found a good position really to get myself in for capturing that full falls. And I'm getting drenched here. You can see I've thrown a cloth over the lens because the amount of spray that's actually coming off is quite incredible. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to shoot this portrait on a wide angle lens because I really want to exaggerate the height of that fall with the water cascading off. I mean, I'm going to shoot some landscape as well because people tend to actually prefer landscape images, but I think when they're looking at them visually, but I think in this case, with the rocks as my main foreground interest and that water coming down, shooting portrait wide angle is really gonna exaggerate those falls. It's a beautiful drop coming off the top. There's definitely much more water than when I came here in the autumn time, and wow, it's just absolutely epic. Incredible to see. So I'm gonna have to take a shot, clean the lens, take a shot. I've still got the polarizer on there to cut back that reflection, and especially on those rocks where it really is shining back at me and I would lose all of that detail. So anyway, I'll show you what I'm looking at on the back of the camera. So you can see on the back of the camera, we've got the rocks again as my main foreground interest, with that beautiful cascading water coming off over the top. And as I say, I'm on the wide angle lens, so it really does exaggerate. Looking up slightly at those falls really does exaggerate that the height of them. And again, I'm going to be shooting on around about half a second, again adjusting my ISO so that I can keep that shutter speed, and then take some shots. Probably will underexpose slightly because I'm getting a lot of light off of that water. But anyway, I mean, absolutely incredible being here. The water's just spraying into my face, but stunning. So anyway, here's the shot.
Although I like the portrait version of the image in the way that the wide-angle lens exaggerates the height of the falls, I have to admit I prefer the landscape version, with its dark rocks framing the falls and drawing the eye into the image. But let me know which you prefer in the comments below.
think that's enough excitement for me for one day. It always feels like an incredible privilege to be able to come to places like this and to be able to share them on the vlogs. So thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the vlog, please hit subscribe and the notification button and leave me a comment below. If you've got any handy tips for photographing waterfalls or you've got any questions, just leave a comment. Hoping to be on the Isle of Mull in the next episode, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for watching.